Behind closed doors, the Pentagon launched a full-scale campaign to kill Canada's Gripen deal before it could even begin. Phone calls from generals, threats to intelligence sharing, economic pressure. Washington pulled every lever of power to keep its closest ally in line. This is the story of how America plays hardball with friends. In early 2023, whispers started circulating through Ottawa's defense circles that shocked everyone. Canada was seriously considering the Saab Gripen E as an alternative to the F-35. After decades of indecision, broken promises, and political theater surrounding fighter jet replacement, some Canadian defense officials were finally asking the uncomfortable question: does Canada really need the most expensive stealth fighter ever built? The Royal Canadian Air Force's CF-18 Hornets were falling apart. Some airframes had over 9,000 flight hours, way beyond their intended lifespan. Canada needed jets immediately, and the Gripen offered a tempting alternative: half the cost, proven reliability, easier maintenance, and perfect fit for Canadian operations from Arctic patrols to NATO missions. When news leaked that Canadian procurement teams were meeting with Saab representatives and seriously evaluating Gripen specifications, alarm bells rang in Washington. The Pentagon had spent years shepherding Canada into the F-35 program. Canada was supposed to be a guaranteed customer, a cornerstone of the international F-35 coalition. Losing Canada to a Swedish fighter would be catastrophic, not just financially, but symbolically. Within days, the Pentagon's pressure campaign began, and it was absolutely ruthless. The Pentagon's strategy was comprehensive and multifaceted, attack from every angle simultaneously until Canada backed down. Senior U.S. defense officials started making calls directly to their Canadian counterparts at National Defense Headquarters. These weren't friendly conversations. They were pointed warnings about the consequences of choosing anything other than the F-35. Pentagon officials raised immediate concerns about NORAD compatibility. Since Canada and the United States jointly operate the North American Aerospace Defense Command, American generals argued that non-F-35 fighters would create integration problems and security gaps. This was somewhat absurd. The Gripen uses NATO standard systems and can integrate perfectly well, but the message was clear: choose the Gripen, and NORAD cooperation gets complicated. High-ranking U.S. Air Force generals visited Ottawa personally, delivering presentations emphasizing F-35 superiority and warning about strategic alignment issues if Canada went rogue. The State Department coordinated with Defense, ensuring Canadian diplomats heard the same message in Washington that military officials heard at home. Meanwhile, Lockheed Martin unleashed its lobbying army. Former Pentagon officials, now working as defense consultants, contacted Canadian politicians. Think tanks published reports questioning Gripen capabilities. Media outlets friendly to defense contractors ran stories highlighting F-35 advantages and Gripen limitations. The nuclear option came next: threats to Canada's Five Eyes intelligence access. Five Eyes is the elite intelligence sharing partnership between the United States, United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, arguably the most valuable security relationship Canada has. Membership gives Canada access to classified intelligence worth billions in collection costs. Pentagon officials subtly suggested that operating non-F-35 fighters could complicate intelligence sharing arrangements. The F-35 sensor fusion systems, advanced data links, and classified mission systems are deeply integrated with U.S. intelligence networks. American officials argued that Gripen operators couldn't receive the same real-time intelligence feeds and targeting data. This was partially legitimate concern, partially coercion. Yes, F-35s share data seamlessly across the fleet, but NATO has interoperability protocols specifically designed for mixed fighter fleets. Sweden, though not a NATO member at the time, had been a close NATO partner for decades. The Gripen was designed to work alongside American fighters, but Canada couldn't ignore the threat. Five Eyes intelligence helped thwart terrorist plots, track foreign adversaries, and protect national security. The mere suggestion that this access might be reviewed if Canada chose Gripens was terrifying for Canadian security officials who depend on American spy satellites, signals intelligence, and global surveillance networks. The Pentagon coordinated with Lockheed Martin to weaponize economic dependencies. Here's what most people don't realize. Canada's defense industry is deeply intertwined with American contracts. Canadian companies build F-35 components worth hundreds of millions annually. Choosing Gripens could jeopardize these contracts and thousands of Canadian jobs. Lockheed Martin made sure Canadian politicians understood this perfectly. Company executives met with members of Parliament, presenting data on Canadian suppliers in the F-35 supply chain, everything from landing gear components to advanced electronics. The implied threat was obvious. Walk away from F-35, and these contracts might go to American suppliers instead. Congressional representatives from districts with defense jobs started applying pressure too. Some threatened to review U.S. defense contracts with Canadian firms if Canada abandoned its commitments to the F-35 program. This wasn't just about fighter jets. It was about billions in annual cross-border defense trade. The White House coordinated messaging, with officials reminding Canada about broader trade relationships. With the United States-Mexico-Canada agreement freshly renegotiated, the suggestion was clear. Defense cooperation and trade access go hand in hand. Choose wisely. Canadian aerospace companies facing potential contract losses started lobbying their own government to stick with F-35. The Pentagon had turned Canada's own industry against the Gripen option. Publicly, Canadian officials maintained that procurement decisions would be made on merit and in Canada's best interests. Behind closed doors, the Gripen option was quietly shelved. In late 2022, Canada officially committed to purchasing 88 F-35s, with deliveries beginning in 2026. The Pentagon had won, but the pressure campaign left deep scars. Canadian defense officials resented being strong-armed by their closest ally. Some leaked details of Pentagon pressure tactics to journalists, ensuring the story became public. Parliamentary committees held hearings where officials carefully acknowledged discussions with allies about procurement choices, diplomatic code for "we got threatened." The incident revealed uncomfortable truths about alliance dynamics. Canada, despite being a G7 nation with the world's ninth largest economy, had virtually no procurement independence when Pentagon interests were at stake. Sovereignty had clear limits when it contradicted Washington's strategic plans. For other American allies watching closely, Australia, European NATO members, Asian partners, the message was unmistakable. The United States will use every tool available to maintain defense industry dominance. Intelligence access, economic pressure, diplomatic coercion, everything is on the table. The Gripen affair proved that in the modern Western alliance, buying American isn't just preferred, it's practically mandatory. The Pentagon's campaign against Canada's Gripen deal exposed how alliances really work when billions are at stake. Canada learned that friendship has limits, and sovereignty comes second to American strategic interests. The question is, will other allies remember this lesson? Was the Pentagon right to pressure Canada, or is this alliance bullying? Share your thoughts in the comments. Like and subscribe for more defense industry exposés that reveal what really happens behind closed doors.